Hello everybody and welcome to parksbros. It's Drew here, and today we're going to be traveling to SeaWorld San Diego for their newest roller coaster, Arctic Rescue, in our full in-depth review. Arctic Rescue opened up at SeaWorld San Diego in San Diego, California on June 2nd, 2023, and is an Intamin family launch coaster, otherwise known as a straddle coaster, and actually it is being advertised as the longest and fastest straddle coaster on the west coast of the United States, with its top height of 30 feet, a top speed of 40 miles an hour, that gets you through all 2,800 feet of track in 1 minute and 10 seconds from launch to brake run, and a station-to-station time of 1 minute and 20 seconds. This roller coaster offers 3 different launches, all powered by drive tires that give you a higher and higher top speed with each one. Now that we know the baseline of stats though for this ride, let's make sure we know how to travel to the Arctic Circle. As you enter in the main entrance of SeaWorld San Diego, you're going to want to take a right turn down that main pathway that will most likely be covered by a light tunnel, entering you into the Ocean Explorer realm. Keep following this main path past the aquariums on your right, as well as Tentacle Twirl on your left, as you'll eventually pass by Electric Eel on the right-hand side, this big 150-foot tall thrill coaster. You're going to want to keep going down that main path as you'll pass by Journey to Atlantis on your right-hand side as well, before encountering Wild Arctic as an entire building that will appear on your right-hand side. This building is massive, as it's not only home to the roller coaster, but you'll eventually see just across from the entry to the Penguin exhibit 2 coinciding signs, one on the left-hand side for Arctic Rescue the roller coaster and one on the right for Wild Arctic. You're going to want to enter through that archway before making a left. Do keep in mind, if you have loose articles of any kind like bags, backpacks, or realistically anything larger than can fit in your pockets, make sure to walk in the main pathway in the center of the building real quick, turn to the left very quickly, and you'll find the lockers there. Once you purchase a locker and put all your belongings in there, you can come back outside and enter into the main queue. There's nothing really to write home about this queue line. It's a bunch of switchbacks, so you're just going to be walking back and forth over and over again, with it being half under shade and half not, but at least you have some cool informational signs to teach you about the educational aspects of the ride itself and its tie-ins, as well as to learn about the Arctic Circle itself and how to rescue some of those animals that are in more need of help than ever. Once you've made it through the switchbacks, you'll finally enter into the main entryway of the building for Arctic Rescue, with a big bright orange sign right overhead. From this point, you'll turn to the left fairly quickly, and boom, you are in the station already. This station has some light theming, including a cool Northern Lights inspired light show on the roof, as well as a couple decals around the room saying Ready, Set, Rescue, and more. It's not meant to be anything flashy, as it's supposed to tie in with base station Wild Arctic that you're currently visiting, and I could say it definitely fits in quite well, as that mobile unit you're joining doesn't need anything flashy, as you're ready to get on your snowmobile. Speaking of snowmobiles, these trains are really nice looking. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and something we notice is they're actually themed to look like they're electric vehicles as well. This ride features 8 rows with 2 seats per row, equaling 16 riders per train. And while the marketing of it being a straddle coaster, as well as you sitting down in a snowmobile, might make you think that your seating position is going to be quite different from other roller coasters, it's not too insanely different. As you walk into your seat, it's fairly regular in comparison to a lot of sit-down roller coasters that are in the family style. However, there will be 2 footwells that your feet will have to be able to fit properly in, otherwise you might have some trouble pulling down your restraint enough, as if your feet are too big to fit in those footwells, your legs will be pushed up and the lap bar will only have so far to go. This is something we realized happened a little bit on this ride when we were here for previews earlier in the week, so do keep that in mind. A max height of 77 inches has been applied to this ride. Now, getting back to the seat itself, once you're sat, your feet are in those little spots made for them. You can pull down this kind of bulky lap restraint that fits in between your legs and completely wraps around them with 2 different extensions that go on either side of your leg. And of course, since this is a snowmobile styled train, there are 2 handlebars that you're totally welcome to grab onto, and I highly recommend it, especially for some of the ride experience. It makes it a little bit more exciting. But now that we've hopped on the train, now that we're ready to go, let's go rescue some animals. As soon as you're sent out of that station, you'll make a 180-degree diving left-hand turn, which gets that excitement going as you go directly underneath the exit queue. From this point, you'll go over that first launch. Now, something I've experienced on multiple rides is because of that drive tire launch system, it does take a second sometimes for it to fully catch onto the train and send you flying. So don't be too surprised when you're already halfway down the launch track and it still hasn't really picked up speed. But when it does, you'll be greeted with the exterior of the building and, of course, your first real look at the theming as well as the ride layout itself, as it's so hard to see from anywhere in the park. Immediately after finishing this launch, going at an upward angle, you'll keep ascending toward the right-hand side before twisting downward and to the left. Once you get close enough to the ground, you'll whip to the right and then back towards the left again in your first real experience of that speed, as well as how twisty this layout truly is. Immediately following this is a semi-forceful 180-degree left turn that then welcomes you into an off-axis airtime hill, which can give a little bit of airtime, nothing really to write home about. It's more about that lateral sensation that you feel on the ride. You'll twist back and forth as you start to head toward the right again into that second launch, which is covered by a cool tunnel. You'll notice while going through the layout so far, there's sparse theming, there's some rock work, a couple bits of plants, and even a sign talking about snow being present in the area. But with this second launch is really where the ride starts to turn heads, as the second launch being enclosed really picks up speed, and maybe that's just due to the tunnel being present, making it feel a little bit faster than it actually is. But from this point on, to me, this ride really starts to shine, as this echo chamber encompasses you in all of the sounds, whether it be screaming riders or, of course, those drive tires squealing, before your exposure to sunlight changes and you whip toward the left. Very, very similar to that second launch and turn thereafter on Manta. After this turn, you start to head upward in this kind of awkwardly trick-tracked hill. I don't know how to describe it outside of it banking left and right as it goes over the apex of the hill before diving downward and to the right. You'll see a sign for wind gusts as you pass more rocks in this very powerful right-handed turn, especially in the positive G department. And of course, if you're looking towards the right, you'll see that very famous helicopter that was inside the Wild Arctic exhibit for decades, finding its new home next to that turn, which I think is really, really cool. You'll twist a little bit toward the left, encounter a small floater hill, which doesn't really give you too much airtime, but it's a nice little breather from the twists, before doing just that, turning to the right, a little bit to the left, and then really just feeling all that force go towards the right again. This is when you enter that third and final launch, getting you up to 40 miles an hour as you see a sign on the right-hand side about wildlife being present. At the very end of this launch on the right-hand side, you will see an on-ride photo, so make sure you pose right then and there. And I would recommend holding onto those handlebars and really making it look like you're riding on a snowmobile for that. You'll head upward into another higher point of the ride. I'm not exactly sure which of the 3 hills is the highest at 30 feet tall, but this one lasts the least amount of time as you're heading right back towards the ground in another fairly forceful positive G moment. You twist to the left in this interesting miniature stangle dive move before twisting to the right yet again, passing by 4 flags of 4 of the countries in the Arctic Circle right next to that tunnel structure as you bounce a couple more times into that final brake run. Riding the brakes onward into the mission outpost yet again, you can see the number 97 on the side of the wall. That's actually an Easter egg to the original attraction, Wild Arctic, that simulator ride that was put in that year, as you've successfully saved some wildlife. From this point, you'll make it back into the station, head toward that left-hand side, and you'll walk across a little exit pathway bridge that goes directly over that first launch, and then you'll come across a couple of kiosks for an on-ride ride photo before your exit queue is technically the entirety of the Wild Arctic exhibit, which I gotta say, it's one of the best exit queues ever. If you want to skip all the exhibits, of course, you can walk by the old simulators directly into the gift shop, or even just walk out by the lockers, as it does connect directly to there. So if you did buy a locker, make sure to head toward the right-hand side in that first tunnel as you come out. But there you have it. You've taken on Arctic Rescue. Are you excited to save more wildlife? All right, it's time for my personal thoughts and ratings for this roller coaster. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of feeling a little nostalgic, a little sentimental, as we first learned about this roller coaster potentially coming to the park back in 2019. So it's crazy to me to think that it's already been 4 years since we heard about this ride, and now I've ridden it 7 or 8 different times. And I know a big question for a lot of people was, where will the theming be? What's the theming gonna be like? Is there gonna be any theming, especially after seeing what we were given with Emperor? Well, I'm super happy to report that the theming, while not looking like too much on paper, is actually really great and adds to the ride quite a bit. The different signs pointing in directions of famous cities from the Arctic Circle, and even the trees that will eventually grow to really envelop that area, while not insanely over the top like some other rides, does add to that atmosphere a lot. And to be completely frank, judging by a lot of Arctic Circle landscapes, this is more varied and themed than that technically would be. So personally, I'm entirely thrilled that we got what we did, especially adding in that beloved helicopter to the exterior. And man, that second launch tunnel, great choice by the park. Talking about the ride itself, I do want to mention this ride is extremely smooth and very comfortable for pretty much any rider. But I will mention, especially if you have an emptier train, meaning less people on the train itself, you might get a little bit of a bump every once in a while, and that's mainly from the launches as you're bouncing over those drive tires. And there is a moment of a little bit of a bounce or two after the second launch and after that second major hill in that most positive G-filled right-handed turn around the helicopter. That moment did have a shake or two every once in a while, but to be honest, it's nothing really to change your view on the ride whatsoever. It's still pretty much glass, or I guess I should say ice smooth for the entire ride layout. Something else I've heard a lot of people concerned about is the fact that it's just too close to Manta, another launch coaster made for families. They need something different. Well, I highly disagree. This is a completely different experience to Manta in both layout and actual seating position. And while sure, there is that moment with the second launch and left-hand turn thereafter being fairly similar, that's pretty much where the similarities end, outside of the track both being the blue color. This ride's twists and turns always have you second guessing where you're going next, and I absolutely adore that about it, and it does feel fairly similar to being on a snowmobile. I guess as close as you could get in a roller coaster form. This thing is really fun and not too thrilling, and I will be completely honest in saying that I had a smile on my face pretty much every single ride I had on it. It's just super enjoyable and fun. And it wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year, this is my most ridden roller coaster at SeaWorld San Diego. And the more and more I rode it, the more and more I enjoyed it. The first 2 rides I had on the preview days, I thought this was a great ride and definitely making its way into maybe my 3rd, possibly 2nd favorite spot in the park. But after getting some more rides on media day with it running a bit quicker and getting more experiences on different seats, this thing really started to make me excited and definitely secured its spot in the park, which I'm curious to see what you guys think it would be. Speaking of all those different experiences and different seats, let's talk about my favorite and least favorite things about the ride, starting with that seat category, and then we'll move on into my favorite and least favorite parts of the ride. For seats, I gotta be completely honest here. My favorite seat is that right seat in the front row, the very front row. That was the most intense and fun experience on the ride, and I gotta be honest, I was kind of shocked with how much more fun it was than towards the back. And I know this might be a shocker here, but I do think one of my least favorite seats is towards the back itself. I might say like row 7 or row 6, but if you can, try and wait the little bit extra for near the front. Now, favorite and least favorite moment of the ride, let's start with that least favorite. I'll probably say that first launch, as it's not too incredibly thrilling compared to the others, and of course it takes a second to really kick in some rides. But for my favorite, I gotta say that whole sequence between the second and third launch, that is just absolutely fantastic, although it does have a close second in the third launch and onward. It's just that period of time between the second and third launches is just a bit longer. So now we've officially made it. Let's go over my ratings. And if you haven't seen one of these reviews, I do have quite an unorthodox rating system. First, I'll give you a ski slope rating, pretty thematic, right? On how experienced of a roller coaster rider you should be before checking this out. I'll give a star rating for fun and intensity, and then of course an overall rating out of 10 for my personal score on the ride. So let's start it off. You only need to be a beginner rider for Arctic Rescue. I think this could totally be your first roller coaster, although it might be a little bit more intense than rides at the park like Tentacle Twirl and obviously things like the Bayside Sky Ride. But I will say, compared to all the other roller coasters at the park right now, it is the tamest. You don't go upside down, it's only 30 feet tall, and there's no crazy airtime moments that make you feel like you're flying out of your seat. Now, speaking of that intensity, I'm gonna give this ride a 2-star out of 5 rating, as while it's not exactly a kiddie coaster, it does pack a punch every once in a while, but it's nothing in intensity compared to the rest of the coasters at the park, outside of potentially Manta, but that's a different type of intensity, if that makes any sense. I would definitely recommend riding Arctic Rescue before any of the other roller coasters at the park though, for sure. Now for fun, I was kind of debating this. After my first rides, I would have said 3 stars, but now I think I'm gonna bump it up to 4. It was just such a fun experience all around, and it's such a long experience as well that you can't help but just smile the entire ride layout. So this is easily a 4 out of 5 star rating for fun, which I was kind of shocked by. And something else I changed my mind on after getting more rides, especially closer to the front. Out of 10, I'm gonna give this ride an 8. So now I gotta ask the question, do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you ridden Arctic Rescue? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And of course, while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button and of course subscribe if you want to see more full in-depth reviews in the next coming weeks and months. I really do appreciate you all tuning in for all of these construction updates for this brand new roller coaster that is now officially open to the public, and I hope you're ready for all of the new construction updates coming whenever a new ride decides to pop up. But again, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and of course, until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.